Hello friends, and welcome back. I thought that the weather would be too awful and too wet to be outside working these last couple of days, but it actually hasn't been that bad. So here we are. And today we are working on, and we're going to be talking about soil health and building up those nutrients in our soil and really, just plumping that up, because honestly, if you want to have a good garden, it starts with the soil, and soil is the most important component. It can't be ignored, and it can't be overstated how important good soil is. Take a cue from nature. I like to think of the changing seasons as, this is like a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of the beautiful free nutrients that drop from the sky. And instead of just raking them up and putting them in the trash, I actually am taking advantage of this beautiful our neighbor's beautiful maple tree, and I am collecting them from our side alleyway here, and I am bringing them into the bed. So my goal is to cover. I actually left the dahlias in place. This is Dahlia Way, and I left my dahlias in place. It was a decision that I kind of agonized over what to do, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I read a lot about what other people do, but in the end I decided, I'm warm enough. I know my tubers aren't going to rot, well, they might rot, but I know they're not going to freeze. And so I know that they have a chance of survival. I really have been working on my soil before I even put them in the ground, really hoping to increase my drainage because we have naturally very clay soil here. So I'm bringing in the leaves. I'm hoping that they will provide a nice little protective layer. I'm going to kind of just arrange them over the crowns. I left the stems cut back right here, as you can see, so I know where my dahlias are. So hopefully this will just really help create an extra little layer of protection for them from the wet and from the cold temperatures, because it has been colder this year by a lot. And I know no one wants to hear Californians complain about the cold, so I've been holding back from doing that. But hopefully this will create a nice little layer, and it's what nature does. So this is the time of year that things die back. Things are falling from the sky, and they are collecting on your soil. And what do all of those things do? They are just organic matter that breaks down in the moisture, and the microbes and the moisture break them down, and they become beautiful nutrients that feed the roots of your soil. So this is wonderful soil conditioner. It's full of nutrients, and it is a wonderful way to just create a nice little layer. They will eventually break down. They may seem unsightly, but you know what? I kind of care more about the health of my soil and things breaking down than having things be perfect all the time. And this is the season that it's okay to let things go. We are not great Dixter here. We don't have to be presentable all the time. And I think it's really important to stop and do these things and, put away the need to always be aesthetic and always be camera ready, and embrace the dying back of things, and embrace the leaves dropping from the sky and take advantage of them. So I'm going to be kind of just working through this, and once I'm done raking these leaves in, we'll talk about the rest of the things that I have done to build up the soil here in my garden, which is really important, because if you're starting a garden space from scratch, soil comes first. Soil is king. If you want to have a healthy, beautiful garden, it starts here, literally from the ground up. So let's get raking. So I know to a lot of people, if you're type A, this is awful to you. But what I see now when I look around is beautiful food for my soil, for the worms, for the microorganisms that are in there that are going to break that down, take it down to my plant's roots, and feed them. And so this is what I do every year. Every fall, after I get my bulbs in, I like to come out and just fill up the bed with leaves. And, to be honest, if you had a mower, if you could break them up, they will break down as they are. They will break down in moisture. No leaf lasts forever. But you can speed up that process if you have a leaf mulcher, which I don't currently, but maybe in the new year or sometime in early spring, I will be able to gift myself something like that. And I could just turn all this over and crunch it up nice and small and just put it back in the bed. So a simple rule that I like to live by is as much organic matter in the beds, in the soil as I possibly can. So that means I take leaves, I take what I can. I don't let any opportunity go to waste. So if I have the time and I'm feeling well and the weather is permitting, I'm going to be out here and filling my beds with the leaves. Healthier soil means healthier plants. And healthier plants are going to be more robust and they're going to be more disease resistant during the growing season. And that's what we want. That's the goal. We want to be more hands-off gardeners. I would like ultimately to have such a wonderful, healthy, robust ecosystem back here that I really don't have to do very much. This last year I dealt with spider mites very badly. And there's always powdery mildew and black spot, but I would like to have a healthy ecosystem back here. And by one of the ways that I do that is, I leave my Gara dying in place. And my Monarda, I have learned to embrace the beauty that it is now. And it doesn't have to look like spring. This is lovely. Seed heads dying in place. These are all, our backyard is still full of birds. I still see hummingbirds every day. And so I'm trying to leave roses here to develop rose hips on them. So I'm trying to provide a good food source and a good habitat for our beneficial insects to overwinter in. And that's why, unless something needs to be cut back, unless we're going to be weighed down with snow and branches are going to snap, which isn't a consideration for us here. So there really isn't a huge need for me to cut anything back or pull anything out. I want everything to dry and die in place. And when it dies, it feeds back to the soil. And so that's another thing. So even during the growing season and I'm pruning and I'm deadheading, I do one of two things as long as it's not disease. So this is another good way that I am constantly feeding the soil. So if I clip from a plant like these rose shrubs, when I deadhead from them, I am just dropping them right back under the rose. I do not put them, collect them and throw them out. If I'm cutting large sections of plants and I'm doing heavy pruning, then I'm going to be taking that to the compost as long as it's not diseased. And so I try to keep everything that I possibly can in place and just feed it right back to the soil. I believe that they call that the chop and drop method. And that's what I do. And a lot of people may not like it. It may not be for you. If you are somebody who likes a really tidy, clean garden, I like things to look polished and clean as well. But if I can hide cuttings underneath a shrub and get away with it underneath greenery, that's going to count. That's going to build up the mulch layer and protect the root system and help hold in moisture for those roots during our hotter seasons. So it counts as mulch. It's going to help protect that plant. And honestly, you can't see it. You never know it's there. And it's breaking down and it's feeding that soil back up. So how did I start this garden bed? I started this, so we started with municipal compost. So Sacramento County actually, at least it did a few years ago. I don't know if they still do it. I would assume that they do. But they basically, with all of our yard waste, they make compost and they put them out in huge piles and it's free to the community. You just come and take your buckets. And I literally did that for weeks on end. I just went with big buckets, as much as I could fit into the trunk of my Pathfinder. I literally just loaded it up and I just came out here and just laid it everywhere. And everybody's going to have their different opinions on municipal compost. And, if it's not for you, it's not for you, but it was free. So, I could get massive quantities of it for free. All I had to do was a little bit of elbow grease and heavy lifting. the cost was in the labor, and I provided that myself. So I started out in this sunny border, just laying out compost, and up into the woodland garden, laying down my goal was several inches of compost all the way around. And then we came in with our wood chips, and we did this with chipdrop.com. They dropped off a ton of wood chips, and we put 5 to 6 inches down of wood chips. We have the leaves here spread out in most of the beds. Whatever doesn't break down by springtime, either I'll come in and fine chop them, but I'm really not going to ever remove organic matter from the beds unless I am not able to hide it or it's diseased. So organic matter stays. So back here in the woodland garden, we had 3 redwood trees and the oak, and this was always a very sloped backyard, so we had to put the patio with the retaining wall in when we installed the pool. But underneath the periwinkle ground cover was really thick plastic landscape fabric, and that was a beast to remove. And it was really important to me to remove it, because how are you going to feed and enrich your soil if you have a barrier that's cutting off oxygen and nutrients from getting down there? So, and the difficulty with these redwoods and all these roots is it was incredibly tangled in all of the root system in here. So it was very labor intensive. I would say to anyone, everyone is their own person. I would highly recommend not using landscape fabric, especially if you think one day you might change your mind. It's a huge ordeal to remove. So we came in here, we removed the periwinkle, we ripped up the landscape fabric, and we put as much municipal compost, 2 to 3 inches was our goal, all the way around. And then we came in with an additional layer of 5 to 6 inches of the chip drop wood chip. So we did things as inexpensively as we possibly could, focusing first on getting our soil where it needs to be. And things have improved a huge amount. Underneath the landscape fabric was literally pale, looked like sand, but it was the consistency of clay. It was like rock under there. And now we are at the point where we can actually dig and actually plant things, roots aside. So let's go out to the east garden, because I actually did something different out there to establish that garden bed. So out here in the east garden, we actually did things a little bit differently. We just did the chip drop out here, and we just put a good 5 to 6 inches of chips down here. And what wood chips do, I got the idea from Jim Putnam on HortTube. He's one of my absolute favorites. And he is right. As he says, it is like jet fuel to your garden, to your soil. And it really has been, because what happens underneath on the bottom layer, on the top layer of your natural soil and the bottom layer of the wood chips, is it creates this beautiful humus layer that is like full of microbes breaking it down. And the microbes and the worms actually take it down further into the soil. And that's where you start to get improvements in clay soil and dry sand and loamy soil, and it basically improves all soil no matter what your starting point is. And this is a great example, because I'm just going to break this aside. And so actually that is a great little fungus layer right down there, but we had nothing. This soil was so difficult. We still have Bermuda grass that we struggle with in this area, but this soil was so impossible to dig. I could barely, to clear out the weeds and the Bermuda grass, I got a rototiller in, because it was so difficult to even penetrate this soil that I thought that we needed to at least be able to clear it out as a starting point. So everybody does things differently. That's just the way that I approached this a few years ago. Would I do it the exact same way now? I'm not sure. I'd probably take my time and do things a lot more carefully. I'd probably tarp it and then mulch it and then give it a year before I went in. But that's if you have the time. And so this is just an example of how amazing The shovel goes in so easily. And this is like such a Jim Putnam move. Jim, if you're watching, this is what you've done for my soil. So the soil is wonderful. It's so much more pliable than it ever was. It really has made it so incredibly, and I could really go in like any point, clearing away the wood chips. I really could go in at any point and just meet no resistance. And that is a huge improvement on our soil than what it used to be. So I highly recommend chipping, wood chips, covering your soil with wood chips, because if you don't cover your soil, nature will do it for you. This is a perfect example. So across from our east garden, we have an empty lot. And this empty lot has covered itself in weeds. And I would love to come out here and sprinkle wildflower seeds. It's not my property. It actually is owned by somebody, and they come out every month or so and they chop it back. But this basically, and it's green this time of year. It's not always green, but this is what this actually heavily resembles what we started with over there. Just a heavily weeded blank slate. My last tip that I would give is making your own compost. If you're not doing it already, it's a great way to make inexpensive organic matter straight from your garden back to your garden. So what I did here is I just got some 4-foot T-posts, some chicken wire, and I basically just made my own little pen. And yeah, it could be better, but it does the job. I just needed to create an enclosure, a barrier basically holding all of my organic matter in, and anything that is not diseased, any of my bigger branch cuttings or my bigger trim backs, they go straight into this compost pile. And as long as you keep it moist, every once in a while I come in here and rotate it, and we are like well on our way to good homemade compost. And this is just my ugly forgotten area of the back garden that I normally don't show anyone. So, you know, I just took this useless kind of corner and made it into, you know, something very valuable to me and my garden. So if you have an area, you don't have to go out and spend a ton of money and or you don't have to go out and spend a ton of money on, you know, the perfect example. I don't even use that. I spent $120 on that years ago when I was like, I'm gonna make my own compost, and it just didn't really work that well, and it doesn't really hold that much. Well, it could have worked better if I worked it better, if you know what I mean. But I quickly realized that wasn't the way for me. I wish I didn't spend the money. Take my advice. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't have purchased that. I would have just made this. It was super easy, and it does a far better job, and it's adequate for my size garden. So it's about 4 p.m. We're running out of daylight. It's just that time of year. The hours to be outside and get things done are very short. But I hope that this encourages you to let things go, to embrace the seasons, not feel like everything has to be perfect and beautiful, and to use what nature makes for you and provides around you, and use them and just feed them back into your soil. Feed everything back into your soil. Everything that is organic, everything that you grow, as long as it's healthy, chop it, drop it, put it back in. It will eventually break down. It doesn't always have to look perfect. It's not always about aesthetic. This is the time of year that it is about building that soil health and that soil life, so that come the growing season, our soil is like teeming with microbes, life, and energy and fuel for our plants, and we're ready to go. So thank you all so much for joining me. I hope this video finds you well, and I hope you join me next time.